You're on, Lola.
Hello, everyone. Welcome this evening. And I want to welcome everyone to our first ever live podcast, not podcast, I would say live YouTube. And my name is Lola Michanowicz. Oh, hi. Can you hear me all?
Oh, yes, we can hear you. You may want to mute yourself. Or you may want to mute the YouTube feed. Excuse me.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's an experiment for us all. We're getting there.
There we go. That might be a bit better. My apologies.
You're good to go.
We're good to go. Okay. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Lola Michanowicz and I welcome you this evening. Tonight's live YouTube stream is sponsored by yours truly, Lola Michanowicz Insurance and Financial Services. And our practice consists of a full service, all lines, financial planning and investment advice-based team. Tonight's event is hosted actually by the Vibe Center, which is a unique and boutique business center in the heart of Etobicoke, Village of Islington. It provides a bricks and mortar address to many businesses and both temporary and permanent space as well. As well, it brings you exciting seminars, webinars, and networking events such as this. And tonight is, we bring you this as an insurance provider, as a believer in risk prevention. I felt it really important to share with other businesses and individuals the importance of passwords and securing your business. So many of you may or may not know, but actually 1 in 4 businesses goes bankrupt from cyber attacks. And can you afford that for you and your business? Your book of business could be worth thousands of dollars, actually may be worth thousands of dollars on the black market, and identities are bought and sold every day. And entire organizations like the National Health Service have been brought to their knees by ransomware attacks. Tonight we have Elias Perunen, who is the author of Beyond Passwords, which was published in 2019. And he draws from his experience, which is extensive as a consultant, to explain to you tonight how to protect your business and your business data from cyber attacks. The book itself, which I actually purchased not too long ago, is called Beyond Passwords again, and it details physical and digital attacks and how you can defend against them. Elias is a versatile entrepreneur and president of Northern HCI Solutions Inc. and a IT consulting firm which has worked with Fortune 500 companies and governments and startups. He has spoken at conferences in Canada and the US and has been published around the world. Part of his work led to an agreement between the Canadian government and Seagram's Canada, creating jobs and investment into green infrastructure. His company Event Management Practice, Event Passport, connects people at conferences, seminars, and symposiums across Canada. Today, he's a consultant and advisor to technology firms and government organizations. He also lectures at the University of Waterloo on coding and policy analysis for the School of Public Policy. And we are really, really excited to have you with us tonight. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Lola. That guy sounds pretty good. I'd like to get to know him a little bit better. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking time out of your very busy evening to join us on this stream tonight. I know that I'm the last thing that is standing between you and perhaps a beverage of your choosing, so I will try not to take up too much of your valuable time tonight. The title of this talk is Beyond Passwords, Secure Your Business, and specifically, I want to talk mostly about passwords tonight. And the reason for that is in the full version that I give to companies and that I've given in the past as a seminar, I talk about lots of physical security threats, like what happens, for instance, if an evil maid sneaks into your hotel room and steals your laptop, or what happens if you leave your phone or your laptop unsecured at, say, I don't know, Starbucks. Who's ever, just walked up, gone to the washroom, left your laptop there? What could possibly happen? I detail all about how if you leave your computer alone for 2 to 3 minutes, I can break into it. I don't break into it. I'm a good guy. If you want me to break into your stuff, you got to pay me for it. But given that we're all at home, we're facing a myriad new range of threats. Maybe a little less physical, but no less dangerous. And that's why I want to talk about passwords specifically tonight. Because if you think about what is standing between the bad guys and all of your data? Let's face it, if you're working for a company or maybe you're an entrepreneur, then you are probably using a ton of cloud services. You have a provider over here that does your email. You maybe have a bunch of social media accounts like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I don't know if you've recently signed on for online utility billing, but maybe you've got accounts for your different utilities for your business. So you have all these online accounts. And what I, as an attacker, am going to look for is the weakest link in that chain so that I can get one of your passwords. Because here's the sick, awful truth. Nearly half of people surveyed say that they use the same password everywhere. And we'll get into why that's bad in a second. Well, why don't we talk about it real quick now, actually. Just think to yourself how bad that would be if an attacker got the one password that you used everywhere. What do you think they might be able to do? And by the way, if you're joining us on the YouTube live stream, if you've got questions as we go, please type them into the live chat. I'd be happy to answer them as we go throughout this session, and there'll be some time at the end as well. By the way, my name is, as Lola said, my name is Elias Pruden. That's a good thing that is my name, because otherwise it'd be really confusing for all of us right now. And what we're going to talk about tonight is what the threats to your passwords are, how you can protect yourself and your data. And for the business owners in the audience, we'll also cover what are the consequences if you fail to adequately protect your data. Just jumping ahead, spoiler alert, if you read my book, you'll learn that if you're in Canada specifically, the laws around data privacy have tightened up significantly. What used to be warnings are now armed with very sharp teeth, and they can hold you liable both professionally at your corporate level and personally as a director of the company. But we'll get into the good stuff later. So let me start with a question. How strong do you think your password is? So if you were, by the way, don't type your password into the chat. Whatever you do, don't type your password into the chat. I don't want to be responsible for any of your accounts. Remember, 50% of passwords are reused everywhere. How strong do you think your password is? How quickly do you think somebody would be able to guess your password if they had the chance to guess at it? What do you think makes for a strong password? If you have any thoughts on what makes for a strong password, type them in the chat. Again, are you using different passwords for all your different websites? Are you using different passwords for all your websites? Think to yourself, what could be some of the drawbacks if you were to use the same password everywhere? Think about how hard it can be, though, as well, to manage all these different passwords. After all, you have to think about what's my password for this site and how do I manage all these things? It's a big chore. Let's run down the list of passwords that you have to manage on a daily basis. So let's say you've got your email password, your Facebook password, your Twitter password. That's just 3 right off the top. We're saying that all 3 of those have to be unique. Man, that's a big chore. We're going to talk about some ways that you can manage your passwords without having to make them all the same password or a variance of the same password. And another question I'd like to ask as well is, and I always ask this to my audience, is do you have a trusted expert on speed dial for your IT-related needs? And IT can be all-encompassing, ranging from, do you have somebody that you can call if, say, I don't know, You drop your laptop, or you spill water or coffee on your laptop. Who here has done that? Who do you call if all your data goes away? Who do you call if your accounts get hacked and you need to get access to that? Who do you call to help clean that mess up? Do you have somebody that you can call? My background, I started in this industry back, I got my first computer at age 4. I've been more or less hacking away at this stuff ever since then. And I made a very good living in high school doing IT consulting for people at home. And so far be it from me to say, deprive a high schooler of that great experience. But, a high schooler might be good enough, or your cousin might be good enough for your computers at home. But when it comes to your business machines, when it comes to your line of business machines, do you have somebody that would drop everything at the first phone call and come help you out? Because how long would you be able to actually survive without that hardware, without access to your data? I remember I did a consulting gig for a financial company, oddly enough, Lola, a financial company that they were having email problems. Their email was up and down, and finally their email went down for a week. And they called me in, and suddenly my consulting fee was nothing compared to the lost revenues they had. But again, do you have that trusted expert on speed dial? So those are just a few things to think about as we get into this. So let's skip past all the physical threats because there's lots of them. The fact that you're at home means that your devices are already a lot safer than they normally would be. As long as you got your devices on you, they're generally safe. Let's talk specifically about your passwords. And look at this. Remember before I said that out of 100 people surveyed, 50% said they use the same password everywhere? Turns out I got that stat wrong. It's actually almost 60%. Just think about that. Nearly 2/3 of people use the exact same password everywhere. And again, that's bad. Why? Well, I gave this example in a podcast a few months ago now. Imagine for a second I'm an attacker and I get access to one of your passwords, your email password, for instance. If I know that your email password is going to be the same as your banking password and I somehow get your bank card number, which chances are if you're using online banking and there's anything coming and you've ever emailed your bank number to yourself through your email address, you get access to that. So I can take, if I get access to your bank card number and I've got your password, I can get into your banking. I can see the assets that you have under management. Maybe I can even do a little bit of identity fraud stuff, call up companies that manage some of your assets, get passwords reset. I've got control over your identity. If you're a high wealth individual, if I can piece together where you live and what assets you have, well, and I know that you've got a couple kids, well, hey, now I know how much as an attacker to ask for ransom. These are the real implications of having the same password everywhere. And you might think to yourself, oh, well, what have I got to hide? My life is not that interesting. Attackers can own your digital life. If we can get access to your email account, which is basically if we get access to your email account, to your social insurance number, and to your bank card, we as attackers own your identity. Straight up. This is why it's important to use different passwords everywhere. Because as long as you use different passwords everywhere, if one of those passwords gets leaked, all you have to do is change that one account. The damage is limited to just your one account. So use different passwords everywhere that you go online. The example I'm about to talk about as well is one of the reasons why using a short password is a bad idea. And specifically, it has to do with when you use a short password on, say, your laptop. So if you've ever worked for a corporation, you might see you might get the prompt every couple of months. It's been 90 days, time to change your password. And you put in a password and you go, it's not long enough. So you put in a slightly longer password and it goes, it's not complex enough. So you throw in some fancy characters and call it a day. You might be wondering, why is it that we have to put passwords that are at least 10 characters, 12 characters, 14 characters? Here's the deal. If an attacker can get access to your laptop and download the password file that's on your laptop, or if they get access to just a whole bunch of passwords stored in a database somewhere, on contemporary hardware, on just a modern computer, it takes about 6 seconds to break an 8-character password. And again, that's using like a Best Buy computer. And I see in the chat here, but I have such a hard time remembering so many passwords. We're going to get to that. Trust me, we're going to get to that. There is a way for us to manage all these different passwords. But that's a great question, though. How do we manage all those passwords? And we're going to get to that. So having a short password is a weak password. It's a password that we're going to be able to break very quickly. Let's have a little bit of fun for a second. So we've surveyed 100 people. Top 3 answers are on the board. You all know how this works. This is one of my favorite game shows, Family Feud. What does everybody think the number 3 most common password? These are the top passwords of all time. Most common password as of end of 2019. Number 3 password. What's the first few letters of above the home row? QWERTY. Number 2 password. 1 through 9. Your name. Good guess. Your name. Actually, you'd be surprised how often somebody's name will get them into, it is actually used as their password. Another common password that gets attackers into systems all the time are passwords like the season with the year. So summer 2020, fall 2020, winter 2020. It's a very common choice for password because it's easy to remember. It's seasonal, but it's among the passwords that are going to be first to be guessed. And the number 1 password as of last year, ladies and gentlemen, 1 through 6. That's right, a 6-character password that's only digits was the number 1 password. ABCDEGH is another voted top password. I believe that one was in the top 10. Another very common password is just running your finger across the home row, so ASDF. Some great passwords. So what I'm going to ask everybody to do tonight is to think about changing your password. You might also want to check out a service that is called, and I'll leave a link to this in the video description below as well. There's a fantastic service called Have I Been Pwned, PWNED. And what that service is say you're worried about if your account has been involved in a major security breach. For example, Google had a bunch of email accounts that were leaked. Bell and Rogers, they've suffered their own share of leaks. This is a website that you can put your email address into, and it will actually say, here are some security breaches that your email might have is confirmed to be a part of. So that you can at least say, you know what, do I need to change my password? Have I changed it since then? So haveibeenpwned.com, and we'll actually go and take a look at that. We should have time to take a look at that live, actually. So what I recommend everybody do after watching tonight's session, of course, go change your password. But I'm going to give you some rules to live by for changing your passwords. This is password education, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. So when I say change your password, when the IT experts say change your password, what's the common advice that we give? Make it something that's easy to remember but hard to guess. Well, as we saw, just 1 through 0 is easy to remember. And you could argue, like, hard to guess for who? Generally, it's not a human being that is going to be guessing your password. It's going to be an attacker's computer, which means that you want to make your password very long. And in fact, I'm going to suggest, and most experts will suggest, that a long password, you'll want to think past the password. Think about a passphrase. Chain a couple of words together. Throw in a symbol or two at the end, and that is going to be stronger than the most complex 8-character password in the world. A long password is strong because once you get past about a 16-character password, it becomes basically impossible for computers to just scream through every combination and try every single combination of password. So you want to make something that's long but easy to remember, because you want to make sure that the idea is you don't want to have to write these down anywhere. Like if you're writing your passwords down on a sticky note, or you're writing your password down in say a Word document that you just save on your desktop, that's maybe not the best idea. An attacker gets a hold of either of those things, or you have maybe you're doing a live stream and you've got a password that's written down on the back of a sheet, and we're reading the sheet. The password that was on the back of here now goes up for the entire internet to see. So you want to create a password that's long and easy to remember. Think about a passphrase, a couple of words strung together. Strong passwords are ones that you don't reuse across sites. If you use a password in one site, do not use it anywhere else. Now, your next thought might be, oh my God, we have all these different rules around passwords. I can't reuse the same password in multiple places. I can't, it's got to be long but easy to remember, but hard for others to guess. Like, how do we actually manage these things? How do I make sure I'm not using the same password across multiple sites? Well, rhetorical question, I'm glad you asked. Because some of the strongest passwords are passwords you don't know. What do I mean by that? What I mean is use a password manager. A password manager is going to be your best friend in the fight against online identity theft and in the battle of keeping your data safe. A password manager such as LastPass is a place where all of your passwords are managed and kept. In fact, and the reason I like to talk about LastPass, just full disclosure, they're not paying me anything. I don't have a sponsorship agreement with them. If anyone from LastPass is on the call, by all means, hit me up. I'll shell for you guys. I have been using LastPass for a couple of years. I recommend it to all my clients. One of the reasons I love it so much is it actually has a browser plugin, so it works with Chrome, Edge, all the major browsers. And when you go to a website, say you go to log into your Gmail, it'll actually automatically fill in those passwords. The passwords are stored on LastPass's servers in a way that even if LastPass themselves are hacked, the hackers can't get to the passwords. They're stored in a very secure way. The convenience is fantastic. So you can have LastPass manage all your passwords. It'll even give you an alert if you use the same password on multiple sites. So every time you log into a site, it'll ask you, hey, do you want to save this password to LastPass? And if it sees that you're using the same password, or if it sees that the password you're using is weak, it'll actually come up with a yellow box and say, hey, this password looks weak. You might want to go and change it. I got a question in the chat here saying maybe use Norton Password Manager. Norton Password Manager, I'm actually not as familiar with that one. It's by Symantec, so they generally make good stuff. So in general, LastPass, KeePass, even some of the options that are built into browsers are pretty good. I really like LastPass just because it is a service that works across, and it also works across all my different devices. So once you get it installed I've got it installed on my laptop and on my main machine, and I've just got a really big, long password, like huge, I don't even know how many characters it is. I'm basically sweating and tired by the time I finish typing in my LastPass password. Also, I have one of the things I like about LastPass and some of these other services is you can set these password managers up, and you can also do this with some of your other accounts, so that you can do something called two-step or multi-factor verification. So what does that mean? That means when you log in using your username or password, that you'll get a text message or an alert on your phone with a 6 or 7 or 8-digit code that you have to enter into this app or enter into this website before you get access. If you've been using Apple's devices lately, you may have noticed that when you sign into your Apple account, you are also prompted on your phone, hey, somebody's trying to access your Apple account. Here's where they're accessing it from, and if it's you, hit allow, and here's the 6-digit key to punch in so that you can log into your Apple account. Another question that just came in through the chat, will this be placing all my eggs in one basket? You could definitely argue that in this case, one of the downsides to using a password manager is that if all of your passwords are in here and somebody gets your master password, you could be in trouble. This is why I use that 2-step multi-factor authentication. So in order to sign into LastPass, not only do I have to use my username and password and my really crazy long password, but the attacker also needs to get a hold of my phone, because I get an alert that goes to my phone and I actually have to punch in that 6-digit code that is regenerated once a minute in order to get access to LastPass. So basically the idea is we put a lot of security on LastPass, on your password manager, because chances are you're going to be able to remember one very long password a lot more easily than you're going to remember 20, 30, 40 passwords for other services. So yeah, absolutely. It could be, if you're using a weak password on your password manager, absolutely. It could be you could be in some trouble. But chances are you're going to be safer by using a password manager and a very long password on the password manager than you will be with trying to list and remember passwords on all the individual sites. The alternatives that I've seen to people using password managers have literally been some people will have sitting on their desk, just a book filled with passwords. Or even worse, they'll have a Word file or a text file on their computer that lists out all their passwords. You can imagine the issues you could get into as well if, say, you get hit with you accidentally open an attachment that's ransomware. It locks up all your files, and suddenly you can't get access to your password file without paying the attackers a giant sum of money. Or if you get a virus or some sort of malware on your computer that copies your files over to the attacker, and suddenly they have your password file. It's a lot less likely for that to happen if you're using a password manager. And specifically, I like LastPass just because of the different features it has. It's a very reasonable price. One other reason as well, and this is what I look for in a password manager, is, and Lola, you being on the insurance side, you could probably, maybe in the Q&A we can speak to this, but for LastPass and some other password managers, you can actually set up with the company a delegate that if you should become incapacitated or die or whatever, that you can set up a person who will inherit the account so that they can go and close out all of your other email, social media, all your other accounts. It's a trusted person, kind of like you would have an executor for your estate. It's almost like an executor for your digital identity. Look for that in your password manager service. Personally, I use LastPass. A lot of my clients use LastPass. They like it. It's simple. But what I would look for in a password manager is look for something that doesn't store the passwords locally, stores them on some server somewhere in a way that attackers can't get to it. Look for a password manager that has that multi-step verification. So whether it's a text message to your phone or you use an authenticator app so that you can to log into your password manager. Those are some of the tips to look for. And again, I cover a lot of those. I cover those same pieces of advice in the book as well. I just want to change gears here for a second, before we go straight into Q&A, and talk about an event that happened this year that's important. That if you're affected, you may want to think about replacing your computer, and that is there are two operating systems by Microsoft. We're all familiar with Microsoft Windows. There are two of the major operating systems Microsoft has are now no longer supported. If your desktop looks like this was good old Windows XP. This has not been supported for a couple of years. But more importantly, as of this year, in January, Windows 7, so computers that were built sometime around 2008, 2009 to around 2011, 2012, if you're still running Windows 7 is now completely unsupported by Microsoft. And what this means is that there's no more security updates, there's no more patches. So if there are attacks in the wild for Windows 7, Microsoft is no longer patching them. And web browsers like Chrome and Firefox have basically said we're going to stop supporting this at some point. So this is no longer a secure operating system to use and can put your digital identity at risk. So if you're still running a Windows 7 machine, definitely consider an upgrade to Windows 10. There are ways that you can do it without having to break the bank. It seems like we've found that with some clients, we've been able to upgrade them to Windows 10 using their Windows 7 license. So in most cases, people have been able to make that migration painlessly, and keeps you up to date with the latest stuff. Quickly, I'll just wrap up with some of the stuff that happens if you have a data breach. As a company, if you suffer a data breach, you are required by law to report it to the Privacy Commissioner. You must also report in a reasonable time anyone whose data was breached. You must let them know. A failure to report this carries with it now up to a $100,000 fine per person. And this is not just limited to the corporate liability. It is also, you could be subject to personal liability as a director of the organization. You could also be sued as part of a class action lawsuit. And what has been real fun is, and I cover this in the book, is some companies have actually found out that their data breaches are not covered by their error and omissions insurance. So again, if you're working with an insurance broker, and you should be, there happens to be a fantastic insurance broker on the call, then you should check and see what your policy actually covers. Because if your company's data is breached and you don't let people know, or there's enough people affected, you may be part of a lawsuit. You might find yourself liable, and you might find yourself standing there without the right protection. So please protect yourself. Oh, who do we report that to? You must report that to the Privacy Commissioner of Canada. I'll post links to that in the video description below. The Privacy Commissioner is who you have to report that to. And again, you must report it. Anyone who was affected as part of that breach. So say for some reason you had an email list with 20 people's emails on it, and that got stolen or leaked out to the internet. You have to let those 20 people know by law that this data was breached, and we're doing everything we can to mitigate it. Again, I cover in a lot more detail in the book about that law. By the way, I'm going to just quickly disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV. This is not a substitute for legal advice. If you have a specific case about law, you should talk to your own lawyer. I am definitely not one of those, even though it's fun to argue. So yes, if it's breached, Privacy Commissioner. So protect yourself. One of the biggest tips I always give people is your devices, your phone, your laptop, never leave those unattended. Never, ever leave them unattended. I, as an attacker, I can get into your laptop in a matter of minutes. Make your passwords long and memorable. Long and memorable. Find yourself a trusted expert for your IT. Somebody that you can call at a moment's notice. Shameless plug. I happen to be one of those people. I've got a group of people that work with me that are trusted, are vetted, that I've known for a long time, and we help keep our clients up and running and safe from and safe on the internet. If you've got a specific circumstance, we'd be more than happy to talk with you. And if you want to get in touch with me, my email is elias@northernhci.ca. And again, links to all the resources that I've talked about will be in the video description below. This session will be, once we're all done, will be available for replay, so we can all watch my flubs and mistakes for all eternity. Isn't that wonderful? So at this point, if you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. See if any come in through the live chat. I'll also bring Lola back up. Lola, how are you doing? Still with us?
I'm great, thank you. Yep.
Excellent.
I'm here.
So are you scared yet?
Am I scared yet?
Yes.
Yes. I have to say I haven't used a password manager, and I always thought, I'll remember them. It'll be fine. I'll just write them down somewhere. But definitely, I think it's something on my to-do list to get to be able to manage the passwords for sure. I think, if I can add something to some of the listeners for just kind of on the insurance side of things, is that many people don't realize that whether you have a tenant's policy or a condo policy or a homeowner's policy, most of them will contain some sort of identity theft coverage. So it might include the actual cost to kind of clear up some of your matters. It actually pays for your lost income while you're running around trying to sort it all out. So definitely, if you experience that, do reach out to your insurance provider and see whether there's any recourse for anything, any coverage there. And on the business side, cyber insurance isn't new, but it's fairly new in context to other types of insurance, such as fire insurance or liability insurance. And every business is going to be very, very different. So I would again suggest that everybody contacts their insurance advisor, broker, and just does a bit of a kind of a check and balance to see how vulnerable they might be to cyber attacks. And there are different coverages that you can buy depending on your type of business.
So that's awesome. That's good to know on the insurance side that there are all these different options. Another actually related to that, I'll tie into that on the computer side. I don't know if you've ever had the experience of being annoyed by Windows updates or your phone having to update. Ever had to deal with that one? But there was a case there's been two cases, and I talk about these again in the book, legal cases one in the States and one in the Ukraine, where there was a breach of information due to companies leaving their computers unpatched. So they kept deferring updates. In the case of the Ukraine company, they hadn't updated one of their computers in about 3 or 4 years. And in the case of the United States company, they were around the same. And what's currently making its way through the courts is whether or not leaving your computers or your phones unpatched is negligence. Because I'd have to look at the actual cases again. I don't have them off the top of my head. But what had happened was basically one of the companies tried to make a claim of some sort, and they were told, they were sued for negligence. And right now, it is an open question: is running an outdated version of Windows, is running an outdated phone that no longer can get updates? If you leave your systems unpatched and you have a data breach, is that negligence? So it's another reason why when you have updates to install on your phone or have updates to install on your computer, don't defer those. Get those installed. In fact, there was a recent Windows patch that came out that was it was an out of band patch. It was released very quickly because what it was fixing was it was possible for attackers to basically modify a program to make it look like it was made by Microsoft or Symantec or any reputable company, even though it was malware. So you get this file, it would look legit, but it was exploiting a bug in Windows. They patched that, so now when you download a program like that, it's fraudulently signed, it'll get caught. But there was a period of a couple weeks where if you didn't have this patch installed, you would have been vulnerable to that attack. So definitely keep your computers up to date and patched as well.
Elias, we've got a question in the chat.
Yes.
Says these days there have been a lot of news about bank break-ins through the internet banking. Any tips regarding internet banking security?
First one that I would recommend is that your bank, some of the attacks that I've seen a bunch of text messages come through saying your account has been hacked, tap this link and it'll be a text message. Phishing emails where it's impersonating the bank. I've seen a lot of those lately. And the biggest tip that I've got is you always want to make sure that and have got bookmarked the actual website of your bank and only ever access your bank through that known good website. If you get a link in an email or if you get a link from a text message, don't click on that. Make sure to go to the bank's actual web page or that page that you've got bookmarked and only access your bank through that. It can be very easy to stand up a web page that looks like the bank, but in reality, it just gets your bank card and your password and leaves you none the wiser, and then suddenly your account is empty. So, and by the same measure as well, another attack I've seen is you get a call from a organization saying we're the CRA, we're Royal Bank, we're insert your bank here, and we're just trying to verify something. Can you read off your bank card number, your social security, and they ask for all this information. What I always recommend is if you get a call that you're not expecting from your bank, hang up, find their actual 1-800 number. It'll be on the back of your bank card and call them back. If a web page gives you a phone number, if a web page or a text message you weren't expecting give you a phone number and say, call this 1-800 number, always verify that number actually belongs to the company. Just because the website says, call this 1-800 number doesn't mean it will be owned by that bank. Again, it's easy to stand up a web page that has a 1-800 number that goes to, God knows where.
So, Elias, I got a question for you. What if someone doesn't trust or wish to use a password manager such as LastPass? What would you suggest as an alternative to be able to keep a record of that? Would there be an alternative that you might suggest?
Would there be an alternative to using a password manager? Because the way that I look at it are there alternatives? There absolutely are. But are there alternatives that are as safe and secure as using a password manager? And that's where I have to say no, there are not. So you could very well have the separate hard copy book that you keep in a locked safe for sure. You could manage your passwords that way. One way which I talked about, which is not ideal, again, because if you, especially now that we're all doing Zoom calls and we're all doing a lot more online streaming, if you've got that file of passwords that's on your computer, if that gets flashed or that gets leaked out to the internet, it's game over. So are there alternatives? Yes, but there are none as secure as using a password manager. Your best bet for managing your passwords as a password manager?
So I've got another question, because it's interesting that you mentioned that these password managers have delegates. Helping a lot of my clients on the financial planning side and investment side of things. I do talk to a lot of clients with wills and power of attorneys, and I have over the last couple of years started to introduce and encourage them to ensure that they also have a list going for all their different accounts and different passwords, whether it's air miles, so that if it is the executor of their estate, they're going to have a much more easier time to find all of this. So I guess that's where I was alluding to, is that, how then should an individual let that delegate know whether, again, because it's obviously in the event of their passing or their inability to cope with that. So, how would you say is the best way to inform people that there is a last password, that you are a delegate, that kind of thing?
So that's an interesting area, that kind of that estate planning, because I've actually been on that end a couple of times now. I've had to manage my grandparents' affairs and get that straightened out. And I actually also got called into a case once where it was a family. The father had passed away very suddenly from a heart attack, and the family was basically just picking up the pieces. So I had to come in, basically break all the passwords on his laptop, recover as many of the accounts as we could so we can get them shut down. In that case, when you're talking about the estate planning, this is where writing passwords down might actually be an okay thing to do. What you may want to consider is you typically would have a safety deposit box at the bank for really important documents like your marriage certificate, property deed, that sort of thing. That can be a fantastic place to store at least the information and delegates for your password manager. Or if you want that extra little bit of security, and say, you know what, I don't want to use a password manager, but I still want to write all these passwords down and have them available for people to, for my family to close down my accounts. If you get them into your safety deposit box, either in physical written down form, or alternatively, if you've got a USB key of some sort. And this is actually a tactic that I've read about from a blogger by the name of Scott Hanselman. He actually recommends, and this is a tip that I love, is every 3 or 6 months, those critically important documents of yours, like driver's license, credit cards, really important passwords, shove them on a USB drive and get them to your safety deposit box at the bank. But again, make sure you have very strict controls over who can access that safety deposit box. You don't want anyone to just be able to get into it. But having those passwords and having that content in a safety deposit box, either in physical or digital form, is a great way to leave that for the survivors.
Yeah, I would on the safety deposit box side of things, I would definitely want some of the listeners to ensure they check with their banks. What sometimes may happen is that if you deposit whatever you have in your safety deposit box belongs to the person who owns the safety deposit box, and it may be actually difficult for somebody else to get in, and it may, the whole process of, the probate and all the processes need to happen first before somebody gets actually into that safety deposit box. So just ensure that, if you want access to those, maybe it's, husband keeps his information in the wife's safety deposit box and vice versa. So I would just, again, caution the listeners to make sure that you check with your provider for the safety deposit box to ensure what kind of entry and who and how to get that set up.
I love the safety deposit box idea, though. That's definitely good to know about the access rules. I've only used some joint safety deposit boxes, so it's been a little bit easier that way on my side.
Yeah,
but
definitely. Yeah,
good
that
to
would
know
be
on
easy.
the individual side.
Yeah.
See, isn't it great when you get into a room with two experts?
I don't know.
Everybody learns something.
Always learning. I've learned a few things today. I've never thought of a pass chain. So a favorite, strung together a couple of words. So that was something new that I learned today. So thank you.
You're very welcome. This has been a blast. I've had a ton of fun tonight. So I think the chat's gone a little bit silent here. So, I don't want to be the person that stands between everybody else and adult beverages.
No. Yes. Is there any other questions? There again, like you said, I think the chat's gone a little quiet here. I know we do still have some people listening in, and what I can do is I will provide my email address in the chat so that if anybody wishes to directly contact me for any additional information or for the information that was presented tonight, please let me know. Send me a quick email. Did that go through? Hang on. Is it there? There it is. Okay. And I would just like to, say in closing, thank you very much for everyone who joined us this evening. And please, give us a thumbs up for this webinar, this YouTube. Also, please follow both of us on your various social media channels. Love if you guys could leave Vibe Center a review just to see, let us know how much you've enjoyed this evening. And again, look forward to seeing hopefully many of you on some upcoming events. This is again a first for the Vibe Center, doing a live YouTube webinar. So I really thank Elias for your expertise on the technology side, because I think I would have been resorting to, I don't know, sending smoke signals or something if it wasn't for you. So thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. This has been a ton of fun. Thank you so much, Lola. Excellent. I guess we transition to our ending. So would you like me to wrap it up?
Sure. Go take it away.
So it's been an absolute pleasure, everybody on the internets. This will be preserved for all time, all eternity. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, links to Vibe Center, Village of Islington Business Excellence Center is in the video description below. Links to Lola McCanowit's practice are in the video description below. Links to my own stuff, of course. If you want to learn more, you can find out about that. It's all in the video description. Just hit that expand button and learn away. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe out there, folks. Take care.
Great. Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.